Hello and welcome back. It's me, here. In today's video, we are going to take a look at the latest from Europe, where the euro is trading near 1.1650. We'll also take a look at the US, where at S8:30 a.m. on the East Coast, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures are up 1.3% as we await the key inflation data later today. But first, let's head over to Europe, where the euro is trading at 1.1652 against the dollar right now, not far off from 1.1650, where it started the session. This comes as the market remains tentative ahead of the key US inflation data due later today. The common currency is also coming off its biggest one-day percentage gain in almost 2 weeks after rallying to 1.1723 yesterday following the European Central Bank meeting. However, it failed to break above the 1.17 level and is now consolidating just below that level. In other words, the euro is still in an uptrend, but has run into profit-taking with many market participants unwilling to make big moves ahead of key data. The market is looking ahead to the US inflation data due later today, and as such, the euro is struggling to make any significant gains. Remember, the ECB left rates unchanged at its meeting yesterday and gave no clear signal about when it might raise interest rates, although it did warn that the recent surge in energy prices posed an upside risk to inflation. On the data front, in Europe, German factory orders fell more than expected in June, dropping 2.4% after a revised 3.8% increase in May. The Eurozone's largest economy saw orders drop to 0.4% month-on-month in June, according to adjusted figures from the Federal Statistical Office. That was both the steepest drop since January 2021 and worse than economists' expectations for a 1% decline. The data suggests that supply constraints are still hampering industrial production in the region. In the UK, the annual inflation rate held steady at 3.9% in June. According to data from the Office for National Statistics, that was in line with economists' expectations and the highest rate since March 2012. The data adds to evidence that price pressures are building in the UK economy. Now, in the US, the market is looking ahead to the latest inflation data later today. Traders will be looking for clues about whether price pressures are starting to ease, which would be positive for stocks. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index is expected to rise 0.3% in June from the previous month. That would keep the year-on-year rate of increase at 3.1%, which is the highest level since August of last year, excluding food and energy. The so-called core PCE price index is expected to rise 0.3% from the previous month and 3.5% from a year ago. Cleveland Fed President Loretta Masters said in a speech yesterday that inflation readings have picked up recently and she expects price pressures to persist, suggesting that the Fed may need to reduce its asset purchases sooner than planned. In terms of top events today, we have the US PCE price index data at 8:30 a.m., which is the Fed's preferred measure of inflation. This will be closely watched by the markets for clues about the future direction of monetary policy. And at 10 a.m., we have the University of Michigan's preliminary consumer sentiment index for July, which is expected to come in at 80.8. A strong reading here could see the dollar rise against the euro. As I mentioned at the start, the Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures are currently up 1.3%. So the market is looking forward to this data and hoping for good news. Now, if you want to learn more about the technical analysis I use in my videos, check out the links below. And as always, if you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button and subscribe. See you next time.